Okay, let's talk about the word market. We throw it around constantly, right? But what does it actually mean? Today, we're going to put on our economist hats, look way beyond the grocery store, and get into the powerful system that pretty much shapes our entire world. You ready? Let's do this. No, seriously, think about it for a sec. When I say the word market, what do you picture? For most of us, I'm guessing it's something like the local grocery store, right? Or maybe one of those bustling farmers markets. Or, hey, maybe it's that stock market ticker you see flashing on a screen. And look, you wouldn't be wrong. All of those are markets. We're kind of hardwired to think of a market as a real physical place. You know, a spot on the map where you go to buy and sell stuff. But, and this is a big but, for an economist, that's barely scratching the surface. You see, for an economist, a market isn't about a place at all. It's about a system, a network. Really, it's just an arrangement that lets buyers and sellers connect and do business. It could be a physical space for sure, but it could just as easily be a website, an app on your phone, or even a bunch of phone calls. This idea actually goes way back. Check out this quote from a 19th century economist, Augustin Cournot. It's surprisingly modern. He said it's not a particular place, but the whole of any region where buyers and sellers are in close contact. And those are the key words right there. It's not about the location. It's about the connection, the potential for a deal to happen. That's what creates a network where, prices for the same stuff naturally start to even out. Okay, so if a market is an arrangement, what do you actually need to make one? Well, think of it like a recipe. It turns out there are only 5 essential ingredients. And these 5 things apply to any market, whether it's a kid's lemonade stand or the massive global oil market. So let's run through this recipe real quick. First, you need buyers and sellers. Obvious, right? Second, you need a product or service, something to actually exchange. Third, you've got to have a price for that product. Fourth, and this is super important, you need that close contact, that network we were talking about, so people can actually make a deal. And last but not least, both sides have to have at least some idea of what's going on in the market. And that's it. That's the whole shebang. Those 5 things are the building blocks for any market you can imagine. All right, now that we have our basic recipe down, we can start to see how different markets are organized. And trust me, economists love to categorize things. The first 2 ways they do it are pretty straightforward, by place and by time. So classifying by place is just what it sounds like. You've got your local markets, right? Like the bakery in your town that serves the neighborhood. Then you've got national markets, which operate inside a country's borders and follow its rules. And of course, there are international markets, which are worldwide and deal with all the fun stuff like cross-border trade. Now, classifying by time, this is all about how fast a seller can react to what people want. So in a very short period, think like a single day, the supply is what it is. A fisherman can only sell the fish he already caught today, period. In the short period, maybe he can hire an extra helper. But when you get to the long and very long periods, well, anything goes. He could buy a whole new boat or even start a new fishing company from scratch. The main takeaway, the more time you have, the more flexible the supply can be. But here's the deal. Classifying by place and time, that's useful for sure. But the most important way economists look at markets, the one that reveals the most, it all comes down to one thing: competition. How much competition is there? Because let me tell you, that one factor changes everything. And this brings us to the holy grail, the almost mythical ideal of competition. It's called perfect competition. The economist Joan Robinson put it best. She said it's when the demand for a producer's stuff is perfectly elastic. So what on earth does that mean? Well, just imagine this. You're a seller, and if you raise your price by a single penny, your sales instantly drop to 0. That's perfect elasticity. It basically means your customers have so many other identical options that they will leave you in a heartbeat. So what does this mythical beast, this perfect market, actually look like? It's pretty much an economist's dream. It's a theoretical model, a perfect little world built on some very, very specific rules. Let's get into what they are. First off, you need a huge number of buyers and sellers. I mean, so many that no single person or company can move the needle at all. Second, the product is what we call homogeneous, which is just a fancy way of saying every single unit is exactly the same. Think of a specific grade of corn, not something like an iPhone. Third, there's free entry and exit. Anybody can jump in and start selling or pack up and leave with 0 hassle. Put all that together, and what do you get? A single uniform price for the product everywhere. And this leads to the most important takeaway of all. In a market like this, sellers are price takers, not price makers. They have absolutely 0 power to set their own price. The The market decides the price, and their only choice is to accept it, to take it, or sell nothing at all. Oh, but the fantasy doesn't stop there. In this perfect little world, everyone has perfect knowledge. They know everything about all the prices, all the quality, instantly. Resources, like workers, are perfectly mobile. They can switch jobs and industries with no problems at all. And get this, there are no transportation costs. And finally, there's one more big one. And that is absolutely no government intervention. None. Zero. This is what's known as a laissez-faire policy, which is just French for let it be. The government keeps its hands completely off. So yeah, you can probably start to see why this is a purely imaginary idea, right? Okay, let's bring this back down to earth for a second. Think about the coffee shops in your neighborhood. Is that a perfect market? I mean, is every single cup of coffee identical? Can anyone just open up a coffee shop tomorrow with zero cost or effort? And does every single shop charge the exact same price down to the penny? Yeah, of course not. Not even close. And you know what? That's the whole point. Perfect competition isn't supposed to be real. It's a benchmark. It's a unicorn. It's an ideal that economists invented to use as a yardstick. They hold up this perfect model to our messy, real-world markets so they can measure and understand all the imperfections.
You ever look at a price tag and just think, why that number? Seriously, why does a coffee cost what it does? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that whole mystery. We're going to look at two completely different worlds that decide the price of, well, everything. One is all about competition, and the other? It's all about control.
Right? It seems like it should be a simple question. But the answer is this amazing story about power, what we want, and this incredibly delicate balancing act. You see prices literally every single day, but the forces behind them, they're usually invisible. So let's change that. We're about to make those forces visible.
Okay, so to really get how prices work, we have to start with the kind of perfect, idealized world. It's what economists call a perfectly competitive market. The best way to picture it? Just imagine a massive farmer's market. You've got tons of shoppers and tons of farmers, and they're all selling the exact same red, juicy apples. That's our starting point.
And you know, this idea isn't new. An economist named Alfred Marshall came up with this brilliant analogy for it over 100 years ago. He said, setting a price is just like cutting a piece of cloth with scissors. Think about it. You can't cut anything with just one blade, right? It's useless. You need both blades working together. And it turns out prices work the exact same way.
So what are these two blades? Well, they're demand and supply. The first blade, demand, that's us. That's all the buyers. It's basically how much of something we're willing to buy at a specific price. And the second blade, supply, that's the sellers. It's how much of that thing they're willing to sell. The key thing to remember is, neither blade can set the price all on its own. They have to work together.
All right, let's make this super clear with our apple market. Just take a look at this table. See what happens when the price is really low, like 100 a kilo? Everybody wants apples. Demand shoots up to 5,000 kilograms. But the farmers? They're not so thrilled about that price, so they only bring 1,000 kilos to the market. Okay, now let's flip it. What if the price is way up at 500? Well, now the farmers are super happy to sell, right? They supply a whopping 5,000 kilograms. But us buyers, we're not paying that. Demand just collapses down to 1,000. See the problem here? There's a total mismatch.
But if you look closely at that data, there's a kind of magic number hidden in there. It's 300. At exactly this price, something amazing happens. The amount of apples that people want to buy, 3,000 kilograms, is a perfect match for the amount of apples the farmers want to sell. Suddenly, everyone's on the same page. The buyers and sellers are in perfect sync.
And this magic number has an official name, of course. It's called the equilibrium price. It really is the market's natural balancing point. It's that precise spot where Alfred Marshall's two scissor blades finally meet and snip. They make the cut. So in this perfect world, no single farmer or single shopper gets to decide the price. The market, this invisible force, decides for everyone.
Okay, but let's be real. That was a perfect world, right? Full of happy farmers and fair competition. Now, our story's about to take a sharp turn. We're leaving that friendly, bustling marketplace behind, and we're about to enter a kingdom ruled by one single, all-powerful king.
So let's go back to our scissors analogy. What would happen if one of those blades just disappeared? What if that whole blade of supply competition just vanished into thin air? What happens when you don't have tons of sellers, but you have just one?
Well, that's when we enter the world of a monopoly. And the word itself pretty much gives the game away. It comes straight from Greek, mono, meaning single, and poly, meaning seller, a single seller. It's a market where one company, one entity, has total and complete control over a product that, crucially, you can't get anywhere else.
So how does a monopoly even build this kingdom and defend its walls? Believe me, it doesn't happen by accident. There's a very specific set of rules they follow. You could almost call it a playbook for how to gain and keep total control.
And here is that playbook. First up, be the only seller of a product that has no good alternatives. So people have no other choice but to come to you. Next, you build massive walls. We call them barriers to entry. They could be legal, like a patent, or just really, really expensive technology. The goal is to keep everyone else out. When you do that, you get complete control over the entire supply, and that leads to the ultimate power, the crown jewel. You become the price maker.
And this right here is the biggest difference in the whole story. It's a massive shift in power. Remember our apple farmers? They were price takers. They had to just accept whatever price the market decided on. But a monopolist? Oh no, they're a price maker. They don't ask the market what the price should be. They tell the market what the price is.
And with that kind of power, a monopolist can pull off a trick that would be absolutely impossible in that competitive farmer's market. They can charge different people totally different prices for the exact same product. This has a name. It's called price discrimination.
And once you know what to look for, you start seeing this everywhere. A doctor charging different fees based on a patient's income? That's discriminating by person. The rent for the same size apartment being way higher in the city than out in the suburbs? That's by place. You know how an overnight bus fare is cheaper than a daytime one? That's by time. And your electricity company charging a business more per kilowatt hour than they charge your home? That's by use.
So there you have it. We've taken a quick trip through two totally different economic worlds, one driven by tons of competition, the other by absolute control. And look, this isn't just some boring textbook theory. Really understanding this difference, it changes how you see the world around you. It explains everything from the price of your milk to why your internet bill is what it is.
When you boil it all down, it comes back to that one simple, powerful question. Who's holding the scissors? In a competitive world, the market holds them. Everyone involved, buyers and sellers, are price takers. But in a monopoly, one single company holds both blades. They are the price maker. And that one difference, that changes the price of pretty much everything.
Hey, welcome back. You ever walk down a store aisle and just get whiplash? You know, you've got dozens and dozens of choices for something like toothpaste, but maybe only 2 or 3 for your internet provider. Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden economic forces that shape these totally different shopping experiences. And it really all boils down to one simple question.
Right here. This is the big puzzle we're tackling today. It's something we all notice, right? A total sea of options for one thing and just a tiny puddle for another. And let me tell you, it's not random. It's all by design. And the answer is in something called market structures.
And the two specific structures we're going to zoom in on are oligopoly and monopolistic competition. Now, I know they might sound a little academic, but trust me, they're the key to understanding everything from your phone bill to your favorite can of soda. So first up, let's talk oligopoly. The name's actually pretty helpful if you break it down. Oligo is Greek for few, and poly means sellers. So it's literally a market with few sellers. Think of it like a small, really exclusive club.
And on the complete other side of things, you've got monopolistic competition. This fantastic term was actually coined by Professor E.H. Chamberlain way back in 1933. And it's brilliant because it describes a market that's this wild mix. It's got some features of a monopoly, but with a whole lot of fierce competition baked in.
So let's dig into that exclusive club first, right? This is the world of the few, where just a handful of really powerful companies basically run the whole show.
An oligopoly really boils down to a few key things you see here. First, obviously, there are very few sellers. And because there are so few, they are all hyper-aware of what the others are doing. This creates this incredible interdependence. Every move is watched. Advertising is, of course, a huge weapon they use to steal market share. And finally, it is super tough for any new company to break in because of what we call high barriers to entry. Things like needing a really expensive government license or owning a critical patent.
And this right here perfectly explains that interdependence idea. It is like a high-stakes poker game. If one player makes a huge move, like suddenly dropping their prices, every other player at the table has to react, or they risk getting totally wiped out. For us, the consumers, this can mean prices stay pretty stable for a long time, or we see these sudden, intense price wars break out.
And where do we actually see this play out? Well, look no further than your mobile phone plan. There are a few major providers that absolutely control the market.
And it's the same story in big industries like cement manufacturing. These are just classic, real-world examples of an oligopoly in action.
Okay, let's completely switch gears and talk about monopolistic competition. We are leaving that quiet, exclusive club and stepping into a much more crowded, noisy, and colorful marketplace. The world of many, many rivals.
I mean, this image just says it all, doesn't it? When you're standing in the laundry detergent aisle or buying soap or soda, you are deep in the world of monopolistic competition. All of these products, they do basically the same thing, but they are all screaming for your attention.
And here's that awesome definition from Professor Chamberlain again. The most important part of this whole sentence is close, but not perfect substitutes. The laundry detergent you use is a lot like the one sitting right next to it on the shelf, but you can bet that company has spent a fortune trying to convince you that it's special. So, how do they do that? They do it with their secret weapon, product differentiation. This is the absolute heart and soul of monopolistic competition. It's all about creating a unique identity for your product in a ridiculously crowded space. They use powerful brand names, unique packaging, a specific color, a sleeker design, anything to stand out. Each brand is trying to create its own little mini monopoly inside your brain, which is what drives all that innovation and that fierce brand loyalty we feel.
And you see this everywhere you look. Just think about the insane variety of soaps, toothpastes, and cold drinks. And here's a really great distinction. Remember how your mobile service provider is an oligopoly? Well, the mobile handsets themselves, that's a monopolistically competitive market. See the difference?
So to make all that differentiation happen, companies spend an absolute fortune on something called selling costs. Now, this isn't the cost of actually making the soap, it's the cost of making you want to buy the soap. It's all the TV commercials, the flashy store displays, the free samples. It's all designed to win your loyalty. And of course, all those costs are ultimately baked into the price you pay at the checkout.
All right, we've met the players. We know what they're about. Now it's time for the main event. Let's put these two market structures side by side to really see what makes them tick. This table just lays it all out so clearly. Let's just walk through it. Look at the number of sellers. Few versus a fairly large number. And that directly leads to the next line. High interdependence in an oligopoly, where one move makes massive waves, versus low interdependence over here. Now, look at product type. In an oligopoly, products can be pretty similar or they can be different. But in monopolistic competition, they are always differentiated. That's the whole point. And check out the barriers to entry. They're really high for oligopolies, which can limit our choices, but they're low in monopolistic competition, which is why new brands can pop up all the time. Finally, selling costs. Yeah, both use advertising. But for monopolistic competition, these costs are its absolute lifeblood. It's everything.
Okay, so what? What's the big takeaway from all of this economic theory? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Understanding these market structures helps you understand your own power and your options as a consumer.
And that is really the bottom line. The market for your mobile provider is a quiet, strategic chess match played between a few titans. But the market for your toothpaste? That's a loud, chaotic, and creative battle royale, where dozens of brands are all desperately fighting for your $5.